Ottawa, Ontario, Canada in general. We're here to talk about a hideous experiment which, at least in Canada, is being perpetrated under the nose of our venerated Premier Doug Ford, which may in fact explain, or which seems to explain in my view, why our medical system is in tatters. Have you ever wondered why, despite the fact that, Mr. Carney and our leaders seem to have billions of dollars to be spending in Ukraine and all over the place, and while our medical system goes amok with long lineups, people in the emergency rooms, people not getting treated, people without doctors. Why is this going on? Well, one individual found out, and as a result, the operatives in the Ontario government declared him to be a vexatious litigant and are continuing to marginalize his rights. He found out that, again, this petition that we will link to, he found out that his mother was being denied treatment, and that when he tried to make her better independently through naturopaths, he was blocked. She was being subject to all sorts of hideous domestic and other types of violence. All this was going on, and unfortunately, when he tried to bring this forth, this abuse taking place, try to make the police aware about it, and get her treatment accordingly, a so-called detective started threatening him that he was not supposed to be releasing information about the hideous treatment that his mother had been dealing with, that it was completely unlawful. She was being subject to domestic violence, and that a doctor that was supposed to be making her actually get better was simply conducting experiments to perpetuate an apparent controlled experiment against a senior citizen. This type of activity seems to be repeated on and on. There seems to be a lack of interest in making the Ontario medical system better, making our health hospitals better, because of various interests that seek to exploit the sick, exploit vulnerable populations, and subject them to medical experiments unauthorized by various interests that seek to extract data and to use them for various pharmaceutical and potentially other purposes. These individual brought tons of evidence to present to the court, having been threatened by a detective not to reveal this information. And the result of that was that he ignored the detective, brought the matter to court, was prevented from seeing his mother because they wanted her to be subjected to perpetuated violence and medical manipulation. Judge Roger, back in 2015, was quite supportive until a member of an apparent cabal decided to prevent him from making his independent judicial decision to support access to his mother, and decided to change his mind. And this manipulation of Ontario judges, court staff, has been taking place ever since, under the thumb of our current premier, and nothing is being done about it. People are being exploited for profit by interests in league with rogue operators of the Ontario government that seek to conduct quiet experiments against the vulnerable in order to extract data and for various nefarious purposes. And all the evidence that the particular individual has, which is presented in this petition, and presented to court what the judge did, who was being subject to this manipulation. Well, Judge Sylvia Cawthorn decided that she was going to prevent a lawyer who traveled from Toronto to represent him to out this criminal activities taking place in the Ontario government. She decided, well, we can't have that lawyer there, so she excluded the lawyer, then proceeded to exclude all the evidence that include forgery, that include all kinds of evidence, juicy evidence. She decided to exclude that, declare him a vexatious litigant, and ever since, the same criminal cabal operating in the Ontario government has sought to prevent this individual from appealing that decision because they don't want information concerning the criminal activity in the Ontario government being openly presented so they can continue to exploit vulnerable populations who are being denied access to medical resources and are in fact being subject to unauthorized medical experiments. With your help, and if you sign this petition, we can expose these operatives, we can expose what they're doing to undermine the healthcare system, to undermine the integrity of the justice system, undermine the integrity of the police through a well-orchestrated cabal of operatives, which include various well-placed police officers, a well-defined clique of judges. I mean, most judges, I would say, in the Ontario system are very honest, don't get me wrong, but unfortunately, there is a clique of judges, well-identified judges, which are part of this rogue activity by rogue operators in the Ontario government, which seek to cover up this activity, which seek to deny access to justice to this individual who, for lack of a better word, is a whistleblower against these operatives in the Ontario government, which are disregarding the rights of Ontarians, disregarding the right to proper treatment due to interest that seeks to perpetuate medical exploitation, the exploitation of situations of domestic abuse, sexual violence, and other hideous activities. They seek to cover up from intervention by the police and to seek to perpetuate them for their sadistic activities. These cannot take. If you are concerned about a just society for all, if you were concerned about the need for a just society and the need to prevent these types of human rights abuses, if you want a medical system in Ontario which is second to none, which embraces universal health care, which is not an environment for various rogue operatives to exploit the medical rights of Ontarians, if you are against such a corrupted environment, if you want to send our Premier a message that we, the Ontario people, we Canadians, and we, the civilized people in the world, will not tolerate the exploitation of and cover-up of exploitation against vulnerable populations and the denial of medical services in order to support a medical experiments against vulnerable populations. If you are against this macabre activities, the nefarious activities of these rogue operatives, if you want our Premier to take